Man, you guys look good today. It's a rainy Sunday in South Carolina, but that's all right because we're in the house of the Lord. We're at church, and I know it's confusing to some people, but like we meet indoors, so the rain doesn't really matter, right? We're good. So I'm glad you made it. Hey, Pastor Travis mentioned we got some friends in Birmingham, Alabama that are watching us today. Yeah. I need to give a shout out to my friend Vinny and my friend Caprinia, who's watching in Birmingham today. Come on, y'all give it up for those two. Y'all are awesome. It was great meeting you guys while we were out there. Hey, so today we got a little change up that we made for the day. And so I know a lot of you saw the trailer that we were going to tell Elliot's story. And how many of you have that friend in your life that whenever you make a plan, they'll go, hey, I have another plan. And you're like, I don't know about that. And then you make that plan, you're like, that plan's better, right? And they always make the better plan. That's how it is like following God.
That's good.
Is that there's a friend that's always like, hey, I got a better plan. Like your plan's good, but if you'll sacrifice good, you can experience great. And I never want to be a church, and I never want to be a person in general, that when God tries to change the plan, I'm so married to my plan that I can't change it. And so as we got closer to the day, Elliot and his family were just like, you know what? Like, we have a story that needs to be shared, but I don't know that now is the time, the perfect time for it. Let me say it this way. Nothing is going wrong, okay? Because here's what I know. What I'm not clear about, people make up their own assumptions
That's
about.
True. Yeah.
Right? Okay, y'all getting quiet now. Y'all like, yeah, you read my mail. That's why. Nothing bad is happening. It's nothing bad at all. In fact, I'm proud to be able to say that we serve people with people, and we're a church that goes, you know what, God, if you got another plan, that's the plan we want to go with. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to switch it up. We'll talk more about what that is in a minute. We'll tell their story eventually, but we just felt like God had a different plan today, and we're going to run with that for a little while. But before we do that, I do need to celebrate Elliot and Lindsay and his family. Y'all throw your hands up over here. I need to celebrate them. Lindsay's like, don't ever do that to me again. Here's why.
Was that the kiss cam?
Yeah, that's kiss cam. Here's why. Because last year we embarked on an endeavor to launch a new campus. And I keep saying we launched the campus on accident. But to launch a new campus in Florence. And Elliot took the past year, and Lindsay let us take him for the past year, and drove from Columbia to Florence every week to lead worship, to help teach core values and culture, and get the team strong enough that they could hold it with themselves and get the policies in place. He worked with Pastor Chris for a year plus to make that happen. Now that time's up, Elliot is back home in Columbia with our Radiate family here in Columbia, and him and his family can go to church together right here. And so, Elliot, I just want to say in front of everybody and to everybody, thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your selflessness. And Lindsay, thank you for real. I know it wasn't easy to not go to church together for a year. I know I always do that. I know it wasn't easy to kind of split for a whole day whenever you both work hard jobs and all that too. So thank you guys so much. That really does mean a lot to us that you believe in your talent, what God's given you, and you believe in the vision here enough that you were willing to do what it took to help launch something somewhere else. So thank you so much. Y'all give it up for them one more time today. Come on.
So slight pivot today. Instead of hearing Elliot's story now, we're actually going to get to dive into your story, Pastor. This was a conversation point for our staff whenever we were going through like the planning phases for this series. Yeah. You know, I know you really wanted to hear from folks who sit in all the seats from the front all the way to the back of the auditorium, and it was a conversation point. I think it was so funny too. I don't know if it was last week or the week before you were on stage and you were saying that like it's a modern take on like a testimony Sunday, which those always go well, don't they? Have y'all ever been a part of one of those?
Yeah, sometimes you're like, stop, you're getting fired and arrested.
Yeah, you're going to get arrested. You shouldn't have said that out loud.
Yeah, like, come on.
Thank God that was back before some live streaming, though, for some of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Because that would probably be used in court. But anyway, I digress. But so we talked about telling your story, and you so nobly just declined, like I said, so we could hear them from front all the way to the back of the auditorium. But it's really important that we do hear your story, and the reason why and this is just my humble opinion, is that your story is the reason we're all sitting in the same church or watching the same message right now. And your story has impacted all of our lives in small ways and in great ways. And so one thing I do know is that you've been in ministry for 21 years, which is impressive because you're only 30 years old, so you must have given your first message back in the nursery back in the day.
It's great. I was 9 years old laying hands on people. Come on, praise God.
Man.
Let's go.
Yeah. So
receive Jesus, hallelujah.
Man, you don't get to 21 years in ministry by not at some point in time having some sort of experience with church and it changing it. So tell us where all this stuff started, maybe a little bit your upbringing, and then we'll kind of dive into some parts of your story.
Well, I think anybody that gives their life to ministry is partly crazy anyway. So, no.
You started as a drug baby, correct?
Yeah.
Y'all, this is the worst joke ever told on stage.
Pastor Chris is going to get on to both of us for that joke. I just want you to know.
We can edit it out.
No, it's, my parents drugged me to church my entire life. And they did. So I have amazing Bible-believing, Christ-following parents. Nobody has a perfect life, but I do believe I was pretty close. Maybe that's because I was the baby of the family. So I had, I still get about whatever I want. And, but no, they raised me in church, and church was a big part. That's whenever you had Sunday morning church. You had Sunday school. So you went for Sunday school. My mom was the Sunday school superintendent for years.
Couldn't miss him.
I couldn't miss, but true story, there's a guy that sits in our church right now. His dad was my Sunday school teacher. I was the only student that he ever kicked out of Sunday school. He literally made me sit in the hallway because I wouldn't shut up.
You got detention from Sunday school.
It's true, I did. It was bad. And my mom's Sunday school superintendent, she walked by to collect the attendance book. She'd be like, "What are you doing now?" And I'm like, "Mr. Tim said I couldn't sit in class anymore." She was like, "I'm sure it's his fault." So anyway, so you had Sunday school and then Sunday morning worship, and then you go to lunch for a little while, go home and change. But my dad was like, "You ain't looking like you're going to the park." So I had to stay dressed nice. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so then you had Sunday night church, and then you had Wednesday night church. I didn't miss any of that. And then if you had youth group and stuff like that, and that's back whenever you did sports, but sports, they didn't touch Sunday and they didn't touch Wednesday.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they were like, those are church days. You don't ever hear that anymore. So yeah, I was raised in that. At 15 years old, went to a youth conference called Fire and Ice. It's now called Accelerant, International Pentecostal Holiness Church event. And yes, I'm a holy roller. And run on the backs of pews, raised in all that stuff. And I gave my life to the Lord at 15. I walked down and submitted my life to Jesus. And at that moment, I remember my youth pastor, Jonathan Cook, at the time, walked up to me, and he was like, "Brandon, you got a big call on your life. You're going to impact thousands of people. God's going to use you greatly, but you got to get your stuff together." And I was like, "Yes, sir, I do." And then at 16, not even a year later, he gave me the first opportunity I ever had to preach in front of my peers during our youth group when he was out of town one day. And I preached on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Couldn't say their names, so I called them S, M, and A. That's all I said, S, M, and A. And
didn't have lower thirds back then to help you out.
Do what? They didn't have lower thirds. They didn't have any of that. Yeah. I was just like S, M, and A. And if you didn't know the Bible, then you were sitting there like, "What is that?" He's in speaking in tongues at 16. It's great. And so, yeah, I said all that. And then it was a 9-minute sermon. So I became the favorite person to ever preach in our youth group at that point. And I just caught fire at that point. I knew God said, "Hey, this is what I want you to do." And I knew in me, I just enjoyed it. Because sometimes, Travis, finding your call is not an audible thing. It's not just going to fall in your lap. Sometimes it's encouragement from others. And your call is often found in your next step.
That's good.
So sometimes you just got to take the opportunity that's in front of you, and you'll find your call in that. It was because my youth pastor was like, "I want you to preach." And he was a big man. Yeah. I was scared. So I was like, "Yes, sir." And I did. That's only partially true. And I did, and that's where I found, like, dude, I could do this the rest of my life.
And then you got some opportunities after that to go into ministry, kind of early on, right, in your 20s?
Yeah. So right after that, I wasn't a model. Like, I wasn't a perfect high schooler, I was the preacher. I started a Bible group in high school, went on to college, Emmanuel College in Franklin Springs, Georgia. If you don't know where that is, Look on the map, you still won't find it, but it's there. But I went to college there, and at 18 years old, I took a youth ministry position at a church in Bull Snort, Georgia. It's a real place, y'all. It's a real place. And tiny little church, and they said, I think it was like 200 a week, I think it was. And
rolling in it.
Rolling in it, baby, come on. But all they wanted me to do, the best setup I ever had in my life, all they wanted me to do was teach Sunday school for an hour to 2 teenagers. That's all they had. So it was $100 a kid, baby. I was like, let's go. Commission. And so I did, and then this is funny, kind of. You had to go to church on Wednesday nights. Like, you had to go to church Sunday morning and Wednesday night at that school. And you had to go to their service on Wednesday night unless you had a church. The only church I had was the one that I was serving at, and
sure.
Literally, it packed out at 20 people. I mean, it was just small. And I said, I don't have a church I can go to on Wednesdays, but I can start a youth service, so I don't have to go to their services. So I started a youth service. We grew the ministry to about 25 kids, and that was fun. I turned it over when I left. I turned it over to a kid that was in the youth group when I took over.
That's cool.
So that was neat. And then I left college with a degree, and I took a full-time position at Georgetown Pentecostal Holiness Church. Still Holy Roller, y'all. Still Holy Roller. Georgetown Pentecostal Holiness Church. Great time, except I was 20 years old, right. And they wanted me to be the associate pastor and the youth pastor. And, man, I couldn't have led my way out of a wet paper bag at that point. Like, it was bad. And that wasn't the best of experiences.
Well, it's really important you say that, too, because I think so many of us in the room today can relate to, like, hey, we have these big moments where we think we know what we're going to do for the rest of our life. And then we start living through, our teens, our 20s, and our identity changes a little bit. And sometimes what we thought we were going to do kind of wavers. And you kind of even experienced that, right?
Yeah, so there's a difference in knowing what you're supposed to do and walking it out.
That's good.
I think there's a lot of people in the room probably know what they're supposed to do. They're scared to death to walk it out. Because walking it out takes effort. And I just was young enough, and I had nothing to lose, so I started walking it out. But in the moment of walking it out, I experienced some very difficult times. A lot. Now, I'm not blaming it on anybody else because a lot was my own doing. Some of it was others, but I take responsibility for it. I was 20 years old.
Sure.
And it didn't turn out extremely well. So I, in that position, it didn't go like I thought it would go. Yeah. So I resigned fired from that. And I wasn't officially fired, but I quit before they could fire me. And, that's life, right? You can walk out what you think is right, and you still doesn't go like you think it should.
So how'd you deal with, like, that first, like, disappointment at an age where you're supposed to be doing the thing?
Oh, yeah, not well. No, I walked away from it all. I walked away. In that moment, here's what I realized, Travis, in that moment, was my life, my faith, I thought was tied to God, but it was tied to people.
Oh, wow.
And it was tied to the organization of the church. So when the church, and there were some things that happened where the church hurt me, but it wasn't all them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was me too. Yeah. And so when the church hurt me or people hurt me in that moment, what happened was God had now turned his back on me and wasn't real. Mm. So my faith never was rooted in him. My faith was rooted in the approval and the value that others gave me.
Wow.
And at that point in my life, even though I was trying to walk out the call God had on my life, I was still striving way more than I was striding. I was still striving for somebody to give me acceptance and value and go, hey, you're doing a great job. You're growing that ministry. You're doing this. As long as people were pumping me up, God was good. But the moment my balloon got deflated, God was no longer good. And he was punishing me, which is a pretty selfish way to look at life.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, because of what took place in my life during walking out the call, because once you walk out the call, Travis, it's supposed to be easy, man. It never gets hard again. All your problems go away. You got all your money. God takes care of it. You can sit around, never have to fill out a job application, and money just comes in because you're following God. I'm being really sarcastic now, by the way. And so in that moment when it was hard to follow God, I walked away from it all. I told God I was done with ministry. I told God I was done with him. And my girlfriend was a great believer, great example in my life. She was on a mission trip, and I was like, I'm so done that I pulled into, in my work truck at that time, I pulled into a driveway, called her on the phone, and broke up with her. Because, yeah, I know. All right, okay. There's a lot of judgment that came from that. Rightfully so. And I did, because I didn't want anything to do with God. So I spent the next, instead of building my faith in God, I built it in people. And whenever people let me down, God let me down. It's because God let me down. Jack Daniels never would. Southern Comfort never would.
Sure.
Natty Light never would, whatever it was. Other illegal substances never would.
Sure.
And what I realized was when everybody else walked out on me when life got hard, if I had enough money to buy the right things to gather my friends, they were there.
I feel like that's so many people in the room's story, and I can totally relate to you. It's almost like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And so at this moment in your life, you're wrestling with the fact that you believe God's called you to do something more than you can do yourself.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. You're taking matters in your own hands. I'm preaching to somebody right now.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of coping.
Yeah.
And so you're just going through life.
Yeah.
And then it takes even another crazier turn.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What happens next?
Well, here's the thing about coping, Travis. Everybody medicates.
Yeah.
Everybody medicates. Most people don't do it healthy. So, like, medicating is like if golf is therapy for you and you're stressed, go play golf. Just leave the Budweisers in the cart. Sure. I mean, in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Because you're coping the wrong way. You know
That's
what
good.
I'm saying? Like, everybody medicates, and you got to medicate the right way. And I wasn't doing it the right way. I mean, there was weeks and days where I just wasn't sober. I didn't care to be. Didn't want to be. I was running from God. So, yeah, 22 years old. I'm living a life that I never thought I would. And I'm going to condense this part of the story. But I went in for a job. Long story short, about passed out, some things going on. And go to the doctor. My mom made me. I'm a mama's boy.
They know best.
Mom, I know you watching. Your baby boy up here, I'm better than I was, Mom, And y'all know my mom. Most of you know my mom. She's amazing. My mom and dad are incredible individuals. But anyway, went to the doctor. They ran some tests, and just to see what was going on. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to make more money so I could throw more parties. And anyway, through all that, doctor, I'll never forget, nurse was like, all right, you stay right here and don't move. I'm going to get the doctor right now. And I was like, well, that sounded very urgent. And so he comes in, reads everything, tells me what's going on. And he looks at me and he goes, you got to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, I got to go work, bruh. Bruh wasn't a word then, but it shouldn't be a word now, to be honest. And so I said, no, I got to go to work. Yeah. And he was like, no, you can go by ambulance or you can drive. I'll allow you to drive yourself if somebody follows you or is on the phone with you.
Serious.
Because it was that serious of a heart thing. So I couldn't make the decision. Called my mom. I said, Ma, I don't know what, you ever been so, and that's important because you ever been so shocked that you can't think straight? Here's why I say that. That's why you need people around you that care about you.
That's good.
So that they can walk you through those moments.
That's good.
When your marriage gets hard and you can't make a decision, you need somebody that cares about your marriage. That you can go, I need lunch or a phone call because I need help.
That's good.
And my mom was like, all right, if you can drive, we'll stay on the phone. Anyway, I went to the hospital, stayed there a couple days. They figured out what was going on over the course of a couple months. And then they were like, hey, we got a 2-hour surgery we're going to do. We can fix it up. You're good as new, good to go. I was like, let's go. At this point, I was 23. I had experienced my 23rd birthday during a lot of this. And so I was 23. And they go in for the surgery, and it's a 6-hour surgery instead of 2. And my parents were freaking out because nobody updated them on anything.
Oh, man.
Because honestly, it was that important of a thing. They couldn't really leave emergency room or operating room. So anyway, I get out of surgery. I wake up, from the good stuff that makes you see purple unicorns and just want peanut butter and jelly sandwiches right afterwards. And they're like, here's an ice chip. And I'm like, that's not the same.
Not even close.
Not even close. And So anyway, I was like, hey, we fix it? And he was like, not exactly. We're going to have to send you to another doctor next week. He said, but don't worry, we're going to send you the best one in the state. He just so happens to be in Columbia. And I was like, okay, great. I'm fine with that. And I looked down, I had a burn here, burn here, and a burn here. And I was like, hey, doc, what's that? And he goes, we had to shock you 3 times in the middle of surgery to get your heart back right. And I was like, oh, that sounds comforting. And this is how I think, y'all. Y'all are getting an inside glimpse today. And here's what I did. I prayed a prayer, and I said, all right, God. I said, I give you my life. I don't want to go to hell. I said, forgive me. I'm sorry. I give you what I got. I just don't want to go to hell. But here's what I also said. I will not go back into ministry. I'm making too much money. I'm good. I don't want to go to hell, so I'll cut back on what I was doing. But don't ever ask me to go back into ministry again. I won the negotiation. I negotiated with God, Travis Lucas. It was amazing. And a week later, go into surgery, comes out. That one goes 6.5 hours. Wasn't supposed to. Go into surgery, come out. Doctor's at the foot. I'm like, hey, is it fixed? He's like, yeah, I think so, which is what you want to hear from a doctor after he does surgery on you for 6 hours. And I heard him telling my mom that they had to keep my heart beating for 10 minutes through a computer because during the surgery it had stopped at that moment. And they just had to keep it going, and I guess they shocked it back in, or it got back in rhythm or something. I don't know what happened. And I remember the doctor saying this, it's by the hand of God that he got out of there. Wow. I remember that. I might have seen purple unicorns, but I heard that. And so that night, he looks at me and my parents. He goes, 90% of the time I'd send them home. I just feel like I want to keep him tonight. So I was like, all right, cool. More hospital food. That sounds good. And so I stayed, sent my mom home. I was like, Mom, just go home, get some rest. You hadn't rested in a week, 2 weeks, a year, whatever it's been. Yeah. She goes home, and I think it was like 7:05, something like that. My heart rate drops from 60s, 70s to 30, low 30s. And it felt like you and your entire family were standing on my chest, jumping up and down, caving in on me, couldn't breathe. I'm throwing up off this side of the bed. They're pumping. All of a sudden, the movie opens up. Alarms are going off. Nurses are running in the door. They start pumping fluids into this arm to get the heart rate up. It was drugs to a sustainable, healthy rate. My dad's tearing up. He's holding my hand, telling me it's going to be okay. And I remember saying something along the lines of, Dad, make it stop hurting or let me die. Oh, which, looking at my life with 3 kids, a beautiful wife, an incredible church, so much now, that's a pretty heavy statement. Yeah, it's a horrifying statement. Anyway, they get me stable, and they go, you got to spend the night in ICU. We got to be able to get to you as fast as possible. And I was like, all right, you don't have a say-so at that point. So I went in, and I remember laying in an ICU bed, and there's what I prayed. I said, God, you've obviously kept me here for a reason. I give you everything. I'll do whatever you ask. I will not waste another vapor. I will not waste another day. And that doctor comes in the next morning, and he goes, you need a pacemaker, but I can't make you get one. And he was like, if you don't have a pacemaker, you're probably not going to live very long or a good life. Sure. If you have one, we can keep your heart rate sustained and healthy. And I was like, well, that's not much of an option. So I took the pacemaker. And and that, that was that part of the journey.
So Ashley and I walked through the door 10 years ago.
Yep.
And
so grateful for that moment.
Well, I appreciate that.
For real.
I got asked to play bass that day, and I remember looking at you, and you and I knew each other previously, just in passing.
They don't need to know why.
Doesn't matter.
Some things are better left unsaid.
Sure. So you can say that for your book.
Just kidding. Yeah.
But,
there you go.
But I remember thinking to myself, whatever Jesus has done in your life, I want him to do in mine.
Wow.
And so what in the world happened from the minute that you found out you had a pacemaker to going, hey, I think we need to give this ministry thing another try?
Yeah, that's a lot. It's so funny Because one of my first questions to the doctor was, will this ever come out of my body? And he was like, yeah, it could. And that's a no, you know?
Yeah.
But I was told by people that if I prayed hard enough and had enough faith, God would heal me from it.
Oh, man.
And I'm 16 years in, and God hadn't ever taken it. And I just decided to look at theology instead of other people's opinions and understand that God does what he wants, not what I want. And so in that moment, Travis, I worked through those emotions. I worked through, and we can get into this later if you want, but depression, anxiety has popped up at this point. I mean, he's 23 years old with a heart problem. And I got an opportunity to be a youth pastor at my home church. And I turned down a 6-figure job that somebody offered me, not the church. I wish. I looked at the boss that was offering me that, and I said, I can't take it. And he was like, why? He was like, dude, you will. He was offering me a sales job. He was like, you're going to kill. Your personality will rake it in. And I was like, yeah, it will. You're right. I said, and I remember looking across the desk, and I said, yeah, but God called me to be in ministry. And I got to go do that. So I turned down 6 figures to take $25,000. And it's a good financial problem there. And God's been faithful. So I entered ministry, and then I just felt God start to call us to plant a church at that point.
And so somehow or another in this entire story, your breakup story gets redeemed. Pastor Megan comes back in the picture.
Yeah, her name was Megan Giordano, you know. And listen, this is true. Yeah. Y'all, she didn't want anything to do with me. I couldn't get her to text me, call me, nothing. I had, all this stuff. And until I died twice. And then she calls me, she's like, I broke your heart, didn't I? No, I'm just... That is our joke now. But then she was like, I just want to make sure you're alive, sure. And you're okay. And I was like, I'm here. And there was a process. And and we started dating again. We were trying to figure out what our first date was back the other day. We have no idea what our first date was again. No clue. Can't remember. Can't even tell you why she said yes to another date or where I took her. But a year later, we got engaged, and now we're married.
At some point in time, you guys are sitting in the same room, and the conversation comes up, what if we start something?
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
She was pregnant, and I was like, I think God's telling us to leave everything and plant a church. And she's like, I think that's the taco.
Impeccable timing.
Don't think that was God there, brother. No, she was against, and she'll tell you she was against it. And I was like, well, let's just pray about it for a while. I'm pretty hard-headed. And so I just knew, and I honestly knew God would tell her. And she came to me one Sunday night after church. She was like, it's time. And I was like, I know, it's time. And we went and talked to the pastor. And here was the vision, man. It wasn't like, y'all, there's churches on every corner. It wasn't start another church. It was, let's start a church that serves the community better than any business ever could.
That's good.
Let's start a church where the next generation doesn't want to leave. And let's start a church where everybody can come in, and no matter where they are in life, they now are a part of a family that loves them.
Love that.
And can introduce them to a God that makes them better. That's what the heart was. I went and sat with my senior pastor at the time, man, and I did not want to leave that church. You know exactly the church I'm talking about. I didn't want to leave. I love that place, still to this day, so much. And I sat down and I told him, and I was crying because I didn't want to leave. And he looked at me, and he sat back. He's a big guy, y'all. He's like a linebacker guy. Like, he's a big dude. I'm not. I was smaller then than I am now. And he crosses his arms, sits back in his chair, and he starts laughing. And I was like, this is where it ends. This is it. This is over. And he goes, I knew that 2 months ago.
Wow.
I've just been waiting on you to come and tell me. And I was like, okay, thanks for telling me that. And they sent us out to plant Radiate Church.
Which is a sermon itself, sending well.
Oh, man, yeah, I could talk on that for days. Yeah, absolutely. It sent us out, financially helped us, kept me on staff for a year. It was one of my 4 jobs in the beginning of the church plant. Yeah.
Well, I was about to say, for anybody in the room who doesn't know, starting a church is the most simple, easy, fluid, nothing will ever go wrong thing you could ever do in your entire life.
You're doing it for the kingdom. Nothing happens. It's great.
So, but you know, in all seriousness, we hear you from stage. You talk about a lot of different verses and that mean a lot to you and moments in our Bible you can relate to. You do quote Romans 8:28 so many times that God works all things for the good of those. And church planting, growing a church, how you have, it's not easy. So what does it mean to you when you think about the all things, the rainy days too? And could you talk about some of those? Because you said, even just recently, there are rainy days. Yeah. How do you deal with those? How do you deal with those now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we started the church, you think when you're doing something for God, and this is a word for somebody, you think whenever you're chasing what God wants you to do that there are no hard moments. Y'all, I worked 4 jobs, drained my savings to pay rent and get this thing off the ground. Couldn't buy diapers. Literally, a wind blew a $20 bill across my foot one day when I went to go leave to buy diapers with our bank account in the negative. Had no idea if I was coming back with diapers or I was going to steal somebody's washcloths.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know. It was legit. And I got so many of those stories. So just because you're following God doesn't make it easy. Yeah. Doing the right thing isn't always the easy thing, and the easy thing isn't always the right thing.
Come on, that's good.
You got to decide, if I'm going to do this, I'm going all in with God. And if it fails, what have I lost?
Right.
Nothing, And so, doing it with a heart condition is, like crazy. Because there are still days, 5-6 years ago, had a surgery where they had to cut open my ribs and deflate a lung and put a wire in externally I showed up, I'll never forget, you preached in our LeGrand campus, and I sat in the back. I was a back row Baptist that day, but the reason was, I'm just kidding if you're Baptist, it's a joke. It's a joke, y'all, calm down. But the reason was I didn't want anybody bumping into me because I was still incredibly sore from everything. And I remember you walked up to me before church, and I was as pale as Justin's white shirt is, our electric guitarist, and you walked up to me, and you were like, "Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" And I was like, "No, but I had to come. I love this place," and I left early and all that stuff. But anyway, there's rainy days. There's days you don't feel like doing it. I'd be lying to you if I said that there's not depression days. Yeah. Where there's days like, God, why do I have to live with a pacemaker? I have to go to the doctor every 6 months. Every month I have to tap in wirelessly for a report to be sent to my doctor because at any moment, last year they detected something on my pacemaker, pulled me in, and they were like, that's a stroke pattern. Yeah. So we need to know that's last year, y'all. We grew 28% last year. Yeah. So if you don't think that hard things can happen in good times, you're crazy.
Wow, that's a word.
But it doesn't make things bad. That's why Romans 8:28 is so important. You've watched me walk into meetings, and you can just tell, man, like you don't feel good. There's anxiety. Like, is this going to be my last day? That happens. There's somebody in our church that deals with a very similar heart condition, and when she struggles in ways that I'm not, anxiety pops up. Like, when's that going to happen to me? And the same with her. But Travis, that's where Romans 8:28 comes in. Everything works together for God's good. It doesn't mean it's going to be good when you go through it. But it means when you go through it, he will work it. And it will be good in the end.
That's good.
There's days, man, that's hard. There's days I don't sleep well sometimes. Like, I'm physically sleeping, but my heart rate's up. So I'm actually running a marathon for 6 hours all night while I should be sleeping. And so I get up and I'm like, I got nothing to give today. It's a mental struggle as much as a physical. We're in one of the greatest seasons of our church's life.
That's true.
And in the middle of that, you know this, I have to learn sometimes how to lead differently than other people do. Because I have a capacity that caps me sometimes. Yeah. Or a handicap, if you will, that caps me sometimes. And that's okay. You just have to go, God, I gave it all to you. And when I gave it all to you, I didn't say I'll follow you when I feel good. Yeah. I said I'll follow you through life. And when I said yes to a church, when my wife said yes to a church, when we decided, when we should have closed up, y'all, it took us over 3 years to break 75 people at this church. We didn't break 200 people for 6 years. You're sitting in something that, honestly, we told this story to a group of pastors this week. They're like, that is a miraculous story. You never should be at where you are right now. You know why? You don't quit.
That's right.
We got people that like to quit way too much. I'm going to be honest. There's too many people that would like to quit more than they like to persevere. God ain't looking for people to just go, I quit, God, it ain't right. No, God's looking for people to go, I'll dig a ditch when it ain't raining.
That's good.
I'll be ready for what's coming before it ever comes. I'll be the one that steps up when I ain't got nothing left, and I'll give everything I got left, because it's in my weakness he's made strong.
That's good.
Not in my strength he's made strong. In my weakness, when I got nothing left, when I hadn't slept that night, when I can't think straight, when I'm moody, when I don't feel good, when I feel like giving it all in, throwing it all away, I've gone through suicidal thoughts in the past, all that stuff. Listen, those are the moments he's made strong. That's You're good. Not. And so some of you need to quit quitting in your weakness and start letting him boast in your weakness.
That's good.
That's what Paul says. Yeah, 3 people got that. 3 people. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, Pastor, I really appreciate you saying yes to starting a church. I truly do believe our church is crafted with your story in mind. We see opportunity in others that maybe everyone else doesn't. We see a second, third, and a fourth chance that a lot of other people don't get. We see special things in each and every person. We truly do believe that God redeemed and called everybody to make a difference, and we make our vapor count. And I love how, since our church has been in existence, that's been a part of our DNA in who we are. And so I think the best thing we could do, just as a church family, is just take a minute, stand to our feet, honor you for your yes, honor you for your story, because we wouldn't have what we have. My life would never have been changed had your heart had been normal.
Wow.
It never would have. And I think that's so many of us in our room. So what I'd love to do is just stand to our feet, give honor to the voice of the house. Say thank you for your yes.
Too much.
We love you. We do believe the best is still to come. Thank you for your story and for your yes. Hey, well, I've got everybody to your feet. Can I just pray for us? And then what Pastor Brandon and I would love to do, just tell you about 2 or 3 things, and we're going to allow you to grab your kids and go have lunch. But I just want to pray over our church. I really want to thank the Lord for you, Pastor, but I also want to pray that he takes your story and inspires something inside of each and every one of us.
Yeah, and that's my hope. Before you pray, my hope is that you don't walk out of here and go, Pastor Brandon's story. It's really a story of God's redemption more than anything.
Yeah.
I just happen to have a wild set of circumstances that are continuing to go. But I want you to know there's a gift in you, and God's ready for you to make your vapor count. You get whatever minutes in a day you get, and you don't know when you'll get them again. You can never go back and be the dad that you wanted to be. You can never go back and be the leader and the pastor and make it count. Make it count and make it count today. Follow God today. We'll worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
But give him all you got today.
That's good. Church, let's bow our heads. Lord, I thank you so much for Pastor Brandon and it really his entire family. Lord, I thank you for his yes. I thank you for taking his story, Lord, and giving him the inspiration to follow you in such a way that, God, that now all of our stories are different because you chose to heal his body in a way that he never thought. Lord, there are actually hearts that came alive for the first time. Lord, I thank you for his yes so deeply on a personal level and a corporate level for our church, God. But we know that every one of us has a story, God. We've all had positive experiences and traumatic experiences, and all those things culminate into the person that we are, God. But you see us so differently through your eyes, Lord. And so I pray that as we encounter Pastor's story and why our church exists and why we're all one big family together, that we know you're the author and finisher of our fate and that you're not done with us, that our best is still yet to come, God. And you can use all things, the good, the bad, the rainy days, and the sunny days, and they all culminate to bring you glory, to help know you more and to help make you known, Lord. And I thank you for Pastor's story and his family's story, God. And we thank you for what you're doing in the lives of each and every person, Lord. And we just thank you and we honor you. It's in your name, by your Spirit, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Hey, real quick, we've got some things. Travis is going to tell us a little bit more in just a minute, but one of the greatest things that I think we do here at Radiate is we serve. We love to serve. We love to give everybody an opportunity to use the gift in them, and we have a session that we call Engage. It's really a system we have here, and if I'm going to be transparent, it's simply to give you the ins and the outs of Radiate Church, the whys and the whats, but here's what we want to do with it. We go through that, and then we go, where are you gifted to serve? Because here's what I believe. I believe one of the greatest ways you can grow closer to God is by serving others.
Absolutely.
I truly believe that.
Absolutely.
And you got something to add to the kingdom of God. You got something to add to this local body called Radiate Church, and you got something to do that God's asked you to do, and we want to be a part of that. So if you'd be interested in knowing more about Radiate, or maybe even unlocking what God's put in you and opportunity to serve, I would love to be a part of that with you. I just greeted our first week of guys that are going through it right now today, and man, what a class that's going to be. I love it. And here's what I want you to do. Either scan that QR code with your camera on your phone, or swing by, find somebody with a yellow shirt on, and just tell them, hey, I want to know more about Engage. And, man, they'll get you plugged in. We just want to find where you are gifted, and let's use our abilities to reach as many people as absolutely possible. And in a couple weeks, Travis, we got Mother's Day coming up. I love Mother's Day, right? I'm a mama's boy. It's going to be Child Dedication Day, right? And my beautiful bride is going to be preaching for us that day. It's going to be awesome. And Travis, tell us where to get some invite cards so we can pack this place out.
Absolutely. Listen, one of the best you can do to help people grow closer to Jesus is take them on your journey and your story with you. So when you exit today, you're going to see a sign that has tons of Mother's Day invites, and that way you can invite all the special ladies in your life to join you for church. Not even just for Mother's Day, but we'd love to see them next Sunday as well. But I think we're at the point where we need to tell everybody
one good thing. You ready?
One good thing. You ready?
Let's go change the world. See you guys next week. Love you guys.